You're listening to All Things Investing, the podcast that makes money talk simple, smart, and actionable. Whether you're just getting started or leveling up your portfolio, we've got you covered with tips, strategies, and no-fluff advice. Let's grow your wealth, one episode at a time.
Usually when we talk about a really complex machine, like popping the hood of a modern car.
Oh, yeah. It's just a nightmare in there.
Right. There's this expectation of just immediate overwhelm. You lift that hood, and it's a tangled mess of wires and plastic covers and fluid reservoirs.
And if you aren't trained, you have absolutely no idea where to even look.
Exactly. You just, shut the hood, turn the key, and pray the check engine light doesn't come on.
It's a complete black box to the untrained eye.
Mm-hmm.
And, well, the natural human response to a black box is avoidance. We don't want to break it, so we just don't touch it.
But a master mechanic looks at that exact same engine and doesn't see a tangled mess at all.
Right. They see systems.
Yeah. They see a few basic interconnected systems working together in harmony. Air, fuel, spark. It's actually quite elegant once you understand the underlying physics of what you're looking at.
Yeah.
And I think that brings us to the modern HR benefits portal.
The dreaded benefits portal.
It really is. You get a new job. You log in to set up your retirement plan, and suddenly you are staring at that engine all over again. The jargon, the asset allocation pie charts, the tax classifications.
And there's no mechanic standing over your shoulder to help you make sense of it.
No, not at all. For most people, it's genuinely terrifying. We're conditioned to think that one wrong click will somehow just ruin our financial future.
And that fear of making the wrong choice usually leads to making no choice at all.
Which is a worse choice.
Exactly.
Right.
Which, ironically, is the most destructive choice you can make. You are wading into deeply muddy waters without a map. And, frankly, the financial industry benefits from keeping those waters a little murky.
Right, because the more complicated it seems, the more you feel you need to pay someone else to manage it.
Precisely.
Which is exactly why we are pulling out the wrenches today. Welcome to today's deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So we are taking a massive stack of incredibly dense resources today. Specifically, we've got the latest 2026 strategic guidelines from Fidelity, some tactical guides from Kiplinger, and NerdWallet's foundational 5-step retirement blueprint.
That's a lot of material to get through.
It is, but we are synthesizing them. The mission today is to build a completely jargon-free, stress-free action plan for you, the listener. We are going to deconstruct the machine.
And let's establish the tone right up front here. This isn't a deep dive for Wall Street traders looking to, exploit micro arbitrage in the options market.
Definitely not.
This is for anyone who feels that pit in their stomach staring at their paycheck, or anyone who clicks away from their confusing HR portal because it just feels like too much work for a Tuesday afternoon.
Right. We are breaking this down into the underlying mechanics, the why and the how, so that these concepts actually make intuitive sense for your everyday life.
Because they have to make sense if you're going to use them.
Exactly. So we are going to decode the brand new 2026 contribution limits, reveal the mechanics of capturing employer matches, and settle the traditional versus Roth debate by looking at the actual tax logic behind it.
We've also got a fascinating cautionary tale to look at.
Oh, yeah, about a high earner who tried to game the system and lost thousands. And finally, we'll explore the behavioral psychology of auto-escalation and how setting up one automated rule today can quietly build a massive autonomous wealth engine over the next 30 years.
It's entirely about designing a system that runs itself in the background. It protects you from your own worst impulses.
But before we can strategize on exactly how to deploy your money, we have to look at the macro environment.
We need to understand the new rules of the game for 2026. Because the stakes, frankly, they're getting higher every single year.
Yeah, let's get into the hard numbers from that Fidelity brief. For 2026, the IRS has officially raised the standard 401k employee contribution limit to $24,500.
Which is a solid bump.
Yeah, a $1,000 bump from the previous year. And when you factor in the total combined limit, which means, every dollar you put in plus every dollar your employer puts in, that ceiling has now been raised to a massive $72,000.
And we also have to factor in the catch-up contributions for older workers.
Right. How do those work now?
Well, if you are 50 or older, the IRS allows you to add an extra $8,000 on top of that $24,500 base limit.
Okay, so that's a nice chunk of extra space.
It is. But here is a fascinating new mechanic introduced by the Secure 2.0 legislation. If you are in a highly specific age window, age 60 to 63, there is a brand new super catch-up provision taking effect.
Super catch-up.
Yeah, you can contribute an extra $11,250 instead of the standard $8,000.
Okay, let's pause on that. Because whenever the IRS introduces a highly specific, seemingly random rule like a super catch-up just for 60 to 63-year-olds, there is always an underlying macroeconomic reason.
Oh, absolutely.
Why is the government suddenly giving us all this extra room to shelter our money from taxes?
It comes down to a crisis of longevity and inflation. If we connect this $24,500 limit to the broader economic picture laid out in the Kiplinger reports, maxing out your accounts, or at least striving toward that number, it matters more now than at any point in modern history.
Because the safety nets are struggling.
Exactly. The government knows that the traditional safety nets are straining under demographic pressure.
I mean, the sources paint a somewhat bleak reality if you aren't preparing for it.
Very bleak. Let's look at the mechanics of inflation first. Because inflation isn't just higher prices, it's the aggressive, silent erosion of your purchasing power.
Right.
The data shows that between 2020 and 2025 alone, food prices jumped 25%.
Wow. 25%.
That is a quarter of your grocery purchasing power just vaporized in 5 years. And it didn't reverse. It rose another 2.3% heading into 2026.
I feel like we all visceralize that every time we walk into a supermarket, you know. You buy 2 bags of groceries and you're out $100. It's inescapable.
And the dollars you are saving today simply will not buy what they used to. Meaning your retirement nest egg has to be significantly larger just to maintain a baseline standard of living.
And the sources note it's not just groceries. Healthcare is compounding even faster.
Healthcare is the true silent wealth destroyer in retirement.
Really?
Yeah, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services data we reviewed shows that annual per-person healthcare spending is surging past $15,474.
Per person. That's incredible.
A person annually. And as you age, that number disproportionately scales up.
Which brings us to the elephant in the room that everyone talks about, but honestly, few actually understand the mechanics of, which is Social Security.
Right, the trust fund insolvency issue. By 2032, the Social Security trust funds are facing potential depletion.
Okay, but let's be very clear and separate the math from the fear-mongering here.
Yes, please. Social Security is not going to completely disappear.
It is not going to zero.
No, it is an ongoing cash flow system funded by current payroll taxes. However, when the surplus trust fund depletes in 2032, the system will only be able to pay out what it takes in that year.
Meaning a haircut on benefits.
Exactly. The projections suggest a potential 20% to 25% reduction in promised benefits if Congress doesn't act.
That's a massive cut for someone relying on a fixed income.
It is. So the benefits you receive, or the age at which you are legally allowed to receive them, might change significantly to keep the math working.
So the underlying message the IRS is sending by constantly raising these 401k limits is pretty clear. Self-reliance is no longer optional.
It is structurally required. You cannot rely solely on the federal government to fund a comfortable 30-year retirement.
Let me throw an analogy at this to make the concept of the 401k a bit more concrete for someone trying to conceptualize this.
Sure.
Think of your 401k as a bucket that the government hands you. The sole purpose of this bucket is to shield your wealth from the drag of annual taxes so it can grow unimpeded.
I like that.
And for 2026, they just handed you a slightly bigger bucket. It holds $24,500 of your own money. But looking at the psychology of the beginner investor, seeing a $24,500 limit published in the news is absolutely terrifying for someone looking at their monthly budget and realizing they can barely scrape together $100 after rent and groceries.
Oh, it feels impossible.
Right. It feels like setting a fitness goal to run a marathon when you haven't even walked around the block. Do beginners actually need to hit this max right away, or is it more of a theoretical ceiling?
Quick break. If you're enjoying all things investing, be sure to follow, rate, and share this episode with a friend who needs to start investing smarter. Got questions? We might answer them in the next episode. Now, back to the show.
It is entirely a North Star. It is a mathematical ceiling, not a starting line.
Okay, that's a relief.
If you are just beginning, letting that $24,500 figure paralyze you is a massive behavioral error.
So what should they aim for instead?
According to both the Fidelity data and the NerdWallet blueprint, a much more realistic, highly effective starting guideline is aiming to save 15% of your gross income.
15%, okay.
And here's the mechanical advantage that most people miss. That 15% includes your employer's contributions.
Wait, really? That is a massive relief for anyone doing the math in their head right now. So if I make $60,000 a year, 15% is $9,000.
Correct.
But if my employer is putting in a 5% match, I only need to come up with 10%, which is $6,000 or $500 a month from my own paycheck to hit that gold standard goal.
Precisely. The burden is shared. You don't have to carry the entire weight of your future yourself.
That makes it so much more manageable.
You start where your cash flow allows.
Yeah.
Even if it's 3% or 5%, you build the mechanical habit of saving. The habit is far more important in year one than the dollar amount.
So we know the size of our 2026 bucket, and we know we don't have to fill it to the brim on day one. The next logical step in the NerdWallet blueprint is figuring out the absolute easiest, most mathematically efficient way to start filling it.
Right.
And the answer across every single piece of source material we have is capturing free money.
The employer match.
Oh.
It is, without exaggeration, the most powerful wealth-building tool available to the everyday worker.
Let's break down the actual math on that, because it sounds like hyperbole until you look at the numbers.
It really does.
Yeah.
When a company offers a match, they are essentially offering you a guaranteed, immediate return on your capital.
The sources note that if an employer offers a 50% match on your contributions up to $4,000, that is a literal risk-free 50% return on your money the second it hits the account.
Exactly.
If you put in $4,000, they hand you $2,000. Where else in the global financial system can you get a guaranteed 50% return just for transferring money from your checking account to an investment account?
Nowhere. I mean, if a private hedge fund manager promised a guaranteed 50% instant return, the SEC would shut them down for running a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
It doesn't exist in nature. But your employer is contractually obligated to give it to you as part of your compensation package.
And the reason this is so critical isn't just the initial $2,000, right? It plays into the underlying mathematics of compounding.
Yes, the snowball effect.
Let's look at a real-world projection from the resources to anchor this. If a 25-year-old invests just $200 a month into a standard, low-cost stock index fund, and we assume a historical average market return of around 7% after inflation.
Which is a very reasonable assumption.
Yeah. By the time they hit age 55, they will have roughly $243,000.
Let's pull that apart, because human brains are terrible at comprehending exponential growth.
We really are.
$200 a month over 30 years means that person only contributed $72,000 of their actual hard-earned out-of-pocket money.
72 grand.
But because of compound interest, the original money earning dividends, and then those dividends buying more shares, which earn their own dividends, it balloons to nearly $250,000.
That's just wild.
Now, apply the employer match. If your company matches that $200 for dollar, you are doubling the input to $400 a month without feeling any extra reduction in your take-home pay.
So the final number doesn't just double.
No, it exponentially balloons. You are effectively leveraging your employer's capital to fund your retirement.
It's incredible, but here's where the mechanics get a little dangerous if you aren't paying attention to how your specific HR portal processes these matches.
Oh, right.
I want to bring up this fascinating cautionary tale from the Kiplinger Guide. They refer to it as the January max-out mistake.
The eagerness trap. This is a classic example of someone understanding the tax code, but failing to understand the administrative mechanics of their own company.
So the profile is a high earner making a $200,000 salary. He gets a massive performance bonus in January. He reads the financial blogs. He knows time in the market is historically better than timing the market, so he decides to be incredibly aggressive.
Makes sense so far.
Right. He takes his bonus and immediately maxes out his entire $24,500 401k limit for the year in a single month. He hits the IRS cap in January.
Yep.
On the surface, that sounds incredibly disciplined, right? Getting the money compounding as early as possible.
On paper, in a vacuum with no employer match, it is mathematically sound. But it backfired spectacularly in the real world because he didn't read the fine print on how his company calculated his match.
And how is that?
Most companies match your contribution on a per-paycheck basis, not an annualized lump sum.
Oh, and that's the trap, because he contributed absolutely nothing from his paychecks for the remaining 11 months of the year, since the IRS legally barred him from putting in another dime.
He triggered 0 employer matching funds from February through December.
0.
He had a 4.5% per paycheck match available to him. Because his contributions dropped to 0 for 11 months, his match dropped to 0 for 11 months.
He literally left $9,000 of free corporate capital on the table.
$9,000 permanently gone, purely because he was too eager to hit the finish line.
It's a painful lesson in administrative friction. So eagerness can actually backfire here. How do we engineer our contributions to ensure we never fall into that trap? What is the structural solution?
The structural solution is a foundational investing concept called dollar cost averaging.
Okay, how does that work?
Instead of dumping large lump sums into the market, you engineer your HR portal to deduct a flat percentage or dollar amount evenly throughout the year out of every single paycheck from January to December.
Let's dive into the mechanics of dollar cost averaging. Getting the full employer match every pay period is obviously the primary benefit here, but the sources emphasize that spreading it out also protects you from market psychology. How does that work?
Well, it smooths out the chaotic volatility of the stock market.
Right.
Think about the mechanical nature of the market. Prices fluctuate daily based on global news, interest rates, and investor sentiment.
It's a roller coaster.
Exactly. When you invest a fixed dollar amount every 2 weeks, let's use $200 again, you automatically buy more shares of a mutual fund when the market is down and prices are cheap. And you automatically buy fewer shares when the market is booming and prices are expensive.
So it completely removes the human urge to try and outsmart the market.
Yes.
You aren't sitting at your computer trying to guess if the Federal Reserve is going to announce something that tanks the S&P 500 tomorrow.
Exactly. Trying to time the market, guessing the absolute lowest point to buy, is mathematically proven to be a fool's errand, even for institutional algorithms.
Let alone a guy on his laptop on a Tuesday.
Right. Dollar cost averaging accepts that the market will fluctuate and mechanically uses those fluctuations to lower your average cost per share over the long term. It enforces discipline when your brain just wants to panic.
Okay, so we've engineered our contributions to secure the match safely across all 12 months. We aren't leaving any free money behind.
Okay.
But the moment you go into the portal to set up those contributions, the IRS forces you to make a major structural decision. You hit a fork in the road.
This is where people get stuck.
The fundamental question you have to answer is, do you want to pay taxes on this money right now? Or do you want to pay taxes on it 30 years from now?
The traditional versus Roth debate. It is the single biggest point of friction where beginners freeze up and abandon the process.
Let's decode the difference, keeping it entirely jargon-free, because the financial industry loves to bury these mechanics in acronyms.
They really do.
Here is option A, the traditional 401k. The mechanic here is that you get a tax break today. The money goes straight from your gross paycheck into the retirement account before the government takes out a single cent of income tax.
Right. Pre-tax.
Pre-tax. Because you are lowering your taxable income for the current year, your actual take-home paycheck doesn't shrink by as much as you'd mathematically expect.
Which feels great in the moment.
It does. That money then sits in the account and grows tax-deferred for decades. But, and this is the hook, when you retire and start pulling that money out to pay for your groceries and healthcare, you pay regular income taxes on every single dollar you withdraw.
Right. You are deferring the pain. Now, option B is the Roth 401k. Named after Senator William Roth, who championed the legislation.
Okay.
The Roth operates in exact reverse. You pay your income taxes up front out of today's paychecks.
So it hurts today.
Yes. You get absolutely zero tax deduction this year. The pain is immediate. But here is the massive structural payoff. That after-tax money goes into the account, it compounds for decades. And when you withdraw it in retirement, you do not pay a single dime in taxes.
Nothing at all.
Not of the principal you put in, and more importantly, not on the massive amount of compound growth it achieved over 30 years. It is completely tax-free income.
Man, I've always thought about this like paying for your dinner at a restaurant. A traditional 401k is like eating your meal first, enjoying the food, but having this lingering anxiety because you know you're getting a massive, unpredictable bill at the end of the night.
That's a great way to put it.
And you have no idea what the prices on the menu will be by the time you ask for the check. A Roth 401k is like a fast casual place. You pay at the counter before you eat. It hurts your wallet up front, but you can just sit down, enjoy the meal, and walk out the door whenever you want without talking to a cashier.
That is a highly accurate way to conceptualize the risk. The risk with a traditional 401k is tax rate uncertainty.
Because who knows what the tax rates will be in 2056?
Exactly. You don't know what income tax brackets will look like then. So how do you actually choose between the two? The standard analytical framework provided by financial planners is to forecast your tax brackets.
Okay, how does that work?
If you believe your income, and therefore your tax bracket, will be higher in retirement than it is today, you should go with the Roth. You lock in today's lower tax rate.
Which mathematically makes perfect sense for young professionals, right?
Yes.
If you are 24, you are likely at the lowest salary of your entire career. You are probably in a very low tax bracket.
Precisely. You want to pay taxes when you are poor, not when you are rich.
Makes sense.
Conversely, if you are a mid-career executive in your peak earning years and you are getting hammered by a 32% or 35% tax rate, you might desperately need the tax deduction today to ease your cash flow.
So you take the traditional.
Right. In that case, the traditional makes more sense, operating on the assumption that your income will plummet once you stop working, dropping you into a much lower tax bracket when you eventually withdraw the money.
It's a huge point.
And it's vital to remember you can diversify your tax strategy just like your investments. You can split your contributions, say 50% traditional, 50% Roth, to hedge your bets against whatever Congress decides to do with tax law over the next 3 decades.
That's a great point about hedging. But speaking of Congress changing the laws, there is a crucial 2026 rule change from Secure 2.0 that actively forces the hand for a specific group of people.
Yes, this is a massive legislative shift that the Kiplinger sources highlight.
What is the shift?
If you are a high earner, which the IRS defines for this rule as making over $145,000 in the prior year, indexed for inflation to around $150,000 for 2026, and you are over age 50 making catch-up contributions.
Okay, so high earners over 50.
Right. You no longer have a choice. You are legally required to make those catch-up contributions into a Roth account.
Wow. Let's look at the underlying logic of that. If the government's ultimate goal is to help people save for retirement, why force high earners to pay taxes up front? Why remove the traditional option for this specific extra money?
It has absolutely nothing to do with helping you save and everything to do with federal budget scoring.
Budget scoring.
Yeah. When Congress passes a massive bill like Secure 2.0, which included a lot of tax breaks for lower income workers, the bill costs the government money.
Right.
To get the bill to pass, they have to show immediate revenue to offset those costs. By forcing high earners to use Roth accounts for their catch-up contributions, the government gets to collect income taxes on those dollars today rather than waiting 20 years.
Oh, I see.
It's a mechanism to generate immediate short-term tax revenue to balance the legislative ledger.
So it's a budgetary parlor trick. They are saying, you make a lot of money, we need our cut right now to balance this spreadsheet.
Exactly. It forces high earners to absorb the tax hit up front on that $8,000 or $11,250 catch-up amount. But, the silver lining is that it forces those high earners to build up a pool of tax-free liquidity for their future.
Which is nice to have later.
It provides tremendous flexibility when planning withdrawals in retirement.
Okay, let's take a breath and summarize the architecture we've built so far.
Good idea.
We know the $24,500 ceiling. We're dollar cost averaging to guarantee we capture every cent of the employer match, and we've selected our tax strategy at the restaurant counter. We have the solid blueprint.
We do.
But here is the stark reality of navigating a 30-year career. Human nature will actively try to sabotage this plan.
It always does.
We get busy, we get a 4% raise, and instead of saving it, we upgrade our car or our apartment. We watch the financial news, get panicked about a looming recession, and decide to stop contributing. Or we listen to a coworker bragging about a hot tech stock and decide to completely alter our strategy.
This is very familiar.
Right. How do we engineer human error entirely out of this process?
You have to eliminate behavioral friction. You have to automate the optimal decisions so they execute without requiring your active, conscious participation.
And how do we do that in the portal?
The single most effective mechanic for this is a feature called auto-escalation.
What exactly is the mechanic of auto-escalation?
Auto-escalation is a background setting in almost every modern 401k platform. You check a box, and the system automatically increases your contribution rate by just 1% or 2% every single year.
Just automatically.
Automatically. Usually timed to a specific date, like January 1st of the month, you typically receive your annual performance review.
But mathematically, 1% seems negligible. If I'm making $70,000, 1% is $700 a year. It's barely noticeable. Why do the sources emphasize this so heavily?
Because of the behavioral economics pioneered by researchers like Richard Thaler, it leverages a concept called inertia.
Inertia.
Right. Willpower is a finite resource. If you have to sit at your kitchen table every December and actively decide to reduce your take-home pay to save more for retirement, you will find a dozen excuses not to do it.
I'll do it next year when things are less tight.
Exactly. Auto-escalation bypasses willpower entirely. If you receive a standard 3% cost of living raise and your auto-escalation simultaneously increases your 401k contribution by 1%, you never actually feel a reduction in your lifestyle.
Oh, because your take-home pay still goes up by 2%.
Right. But you are quietly, mechanically supercharging your savings rate over a decade. You trick your brain into becoming a super saver without ever feeling the pain of loss aversion.
It's engineering success through laziness. You just let the machine do the heavy lifting.
Precisely.
But part of setting up this automated machine requires making a decision about what investments the money actually buys. And this is where the resources, particularly the NerdWallet Beginner's Guide, sound a massive alarm about keeping things incredibly simple and keeping your costs microscopic.
Cost is the silent killer of compounding wealth. Let's examine the specific mechanics of fees, which the financial industry usually disguises under the term expense ratio.
Let's put some real numbers to this. Say you are looking at your portal and choosing between two funds. Okay.
Fund A is a broad market index fund, which simply tracks the overall stock market, and it charges an expense ratio of 0.10%.
Very low.
And Fund B is an actively managed fund, where a team of highly paid analysts in New York are trying to pick winning stocks, and it charges a 0.80% fee.
Also very common.
Now, to a beginner, 0.10% and 0.80% both sound practically identical. They are both less than 1%.
They look tiny.
When you're buying a house, a 0.70% difference in an interest rate matters, but on a $200 a month investment, does it really move the needle?
It moves the needle violently. Over a 30-year timeline, assuming consistent contributions, that tiny 0.70% difference doesn't just cost you a few dollars a month.
Because of the compounding.
Yes. Because of how compound interest operates, you aren't just losing the money you paid in fees, you are losing all the compound growth that money would have earned if it had stayed in your account.
Oh, wow.
The sources extrapolate that this microscopic gap compounds into tens of thousands of dollars in lost wealth. It is a structural leak in your portfolio. So even if Fund B's hotshot managers perform exactly the same as the boring Fund A, you end up significantly poorer just because of their management fee.
Exactly. And let's look at the historical data. Statistically, actively managed funds fail to outperform simple, low-cost index funds over a 30-year horizon anyway.
Really? All those experts can't beat the index.
Not consistently. The efficient market hypothesis tells us that all known information is already priced into the stock market. Those highly paid managers are mostly just guessing, and they are charging you a premium for their guesses.
But let me push back on this, not just to play devil's advocate, but because this is how people actually think.
Go for it.
We see companies like NVIDIA or Apple double in value in a year. We hear stories of people getting rich off specific tech stocks. When you tell a beginner to just buy a broad index fund that returns 7% or 8% a year, it feels like you're telling them to settle for a C+ when they could be getting an A. Isn't investing supposed to be about finding the next big winner?
That is the exact psychological trap that destroys beginner portfolios. I will lean heavily on the NerdWallet guidelines here. Chasing individual hot stocks in your retirement account is taking on massive, uncompensated risk.
Right.
When you buy a single company, you take on all the idiosyncratic risk of that specific company. Their CEO could commit fraud, their supply chain could collapse, a competitor could render them obsolete.
And if they go bankrupt, your retirement goes to zero.
Precisely. So what is the alternative? The universal recommendation across these sources is a highly boring, remarkably efficient 2 to 3 fund portfolio.
Keep it simple.
Keep it very simple. You buy a low-cost, broad market stock index fund, like an S&P 500 or total stock market fund.
Yeah.
This means you mathematically own a tiny fractional slice of thousands of the largest companies in the world all at once.
So if one goes bankrupt.
It barely registers.
Yeah.
You balance that volatility with a broad bond fund for stability. That's the entire engine. You don't try to pick the needle. You just buy the haystack.
I love that. By the haystack?
You let the overall long-term growth of the global economy do the heavy lifting for you. Boring is mathematically safer and historically far more effective.
Okay, so we have engineered the perfect machine. It's automated, it's low cost, it's globally diversified, and it's running beautifully in the background.
A masterpiece.
But life doesn't exist in a spreadsheet. What happens when the engine light comes on in your actual car? What happens when the roof leaks or your company downsizes or you have a medical emergency? We need to look at how to protect this pristine retirement plan from messy, unpredictable real life.
This is a critical transition. Step 1 of the NerdWallet blueprint, which must happen before you aggressively invest, or at least concurrently while you capture your match, is building a 3 to 6 month liquid emergency fund in a highly accessible savings account.
I think this is a point of friction for a lot of people. Why is an emergency cash fund so critical to a retirement plan? They seem like two completely disconnected buckets of money with different timelines.
They're deeply connected because they act as a defensive perimeter.
Defensive perimeter, okay.
If you do not have liquid cash accessible for immediate emergencies, the moment life hits you, you will be forced into one of two destructive choices.
Which are?
You will either fund your emergency with high-interest credit card debt, and paying 24% interest will destroy your wealth infinitely faster than a 401k earning 8% can build it.
Right, that math doesn't work.
Or, worse, you will be forced to raid your 401k. You must build a cash moat around your investments to protect them from yourself.
And raiding the 401k before retirement age is mathematically disastrous, correct? Let's walk through the actual penalty mechanics.
It's punitive by design. The government gave you the tax break with the strict condition that the money stays there until you are 59 and a half.
So what happens if you break that rule?
If you break that contract and withdraw money from a traditional 401k early, the IRS slaps you with an immediate 10% early withdrawal penalty. Furthermore, that entire withdrawal is added to your taxable income for the year, so you have to pay standard income taxes on it. Depending on your tax bracket and state taxes, you could easily forfeit 30% to 40% of your money the instant you touch it.
That is brutal.
The emergency fund is the only mechanism that prevents you from having to make that desperate choice.
Let's talk about another real-life messy situation, the modern career trajectory. People simply do not stay at one company for 30 years anymore.
Very rare these days.
We jump jobs every 3 to 5 years to increase our salaries. And the data regarding what happens to these accounts when people leave is staggering. The Kiplinger source cites data from Capitalize stating there are currently 31.9 million forgotten orphaned 401k accounts sitting in the system.
Millions of them.
And they are holding $2.1 trillion in assets. How does $2.1 trillion just get left behind?
It's an administrative failure rooted in human psychology. You accept a new job, your mental bandwidth is entirely consumed by onboarding, learning new systems, and impressing your new boss.
Right, you just forget.
The HR portal from your old job fades from your immediate priority list. But leaving that money behind is incredibly dangerous.
Because of the fees?
Exactly. When you leave a company, they often transition your account to a different administrative tier, which can include higher monthly maintenance fees.
Oh, didn't know that.
If the account balance is small, those fees can literally eat the account down to zero over a decade.
That's horrifying.
Keeping track of old accounts, either by executing a direct rollover into your own personal IRA or rolling them over into your new employer's 401k plan, is a critical maintenance step. You have to consolidate your capital so you can monitor its efficiency.
Okay, what if you are working multiple jobs simultaneously? The gig economy is massive, and plenty of people are working 2 W-2 jobs to fight the inflation we talked about earlier.
Very true.
How does that 2026 contribution limit of $24,500 apply mechanically? Can I put $24,500 into Job A's 401k plan and another $24,500 into Job B's 401k plan?
Absolutely not, and this is a severe tax trap for multiple job earners.
Oh, boy.
The $24,500 limit for 2026 applies to you as an individual taxpayer across all your aggregate accounts. The limit does not reset per employer.
Oh, wow. So if I'm not tracking this carefully and I accidentally overcontribute because the HR department at Job A has no idea what I'm doing over at the HR department for Job B, what happens? Does the system just reject the deposit?
No, the deposits will process, but you will trigger a punitive tax event.
Of course.
If you defer more than the IRS allows across your accounts, those excess deferrals will be treated as taxable income in the year they are made. And because they are still sitting in a traditional 401k, they will be taxed a second time upon distribution in retirement.
Double taxation.
It is double taxation on your own money. If this happens, you have to contact your plan administrators and formally request that the excess contributions, plus any market earnings on them, be returned to you as cash before tax day, April 15th, to avoid that double tax penalty.
So it requires a massive amount of administrative paperwork to fix.
It's a huge headache.
The overarching lesson here for the listener is that managing this machine requires grace. Consistency absolutely beats perfection.
Definitely.
Over 30 years, you are going to make mistakes. You might orphan an account for a few years. You might accidentally overcontribute. You'll almost certainly get scared during a massive market correction. The key is to recognize the mistake, correct the mechanics, and just keep the engine running.
Exactly. The most common paralyzing fear is waiting until you understand everything perfectly before you start. The mechanics can be adjusted while the car is moving.
It's about building a steady, automated habit, not executing a flawless one-time sprint.
Right.
All right, let's bring this massive blueprint together. We set out to build a stress-free, fundamentally sound action plan. Based on everything we've synthesized today, here is the ultimate takeaway list.
Let's hear it.
1. Secure that employer match by dollar cost averaging a percentage out of every single paycheck. Do not leave corporate capital on the table.
Free money.
2. Select your tax strategy logically. Roth if you want to lock in a low bracket today. Traditional if you desperately need the deduction. 3. Ruthlessly eliminate fees by selecting broad, boring index funds.
By the haystack.
By the haystack. And 4. Automate your future increases through auto-escalation so you don't have to rely on your own finite willpower.
It is a beautifully elegant system once you understand the underlying parts. But before we wrap up, I want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to chew on.
Oh, I like a good twist at the end. What is the catch we aren't seeing?
Something we haven't touched on yet regarding the long-term tax implications of these accounts. We've spent the majority of this deep dive discussing how to put money into a traditional 401k to aggressively shield it from taxes today.
Right, getting that tax break.
It feels great to lower your tax bill. But think about the reality of the contract you are signing. By taking that tax break today, you are essentially going into a decades-long business partnership with the IRS.
Okay, that sounds slightly ominous.
And at age 73 or 75, depending on your birth year under the new rules, your silent partner is going to demand their cut of the profits.
Wait, they force you to take the money out. You can't just leave it in there to grow forever.
No, you cannot. They are called required minimum distributions, or RMDs.
Yeah.
The government will mathematically force you to withdraw a specific percentage of your traditional accounts and pay taxes on it every single year.
Every year.
And here is the kicker. This forced withdrawal happens regardless of whether the stock market is crashing and it's a terrible time to sell. And it happens regardless of whether you actually need that cash to live on that year.
Wow. They just want their deferred tax revenue and they're setting a hard deadline to collect it.
Precisely. They let you defer the taxes they didn't forgive them.
Right.
So as you log into that HR portal, as you automate your savings and diligently build this massive nest egg over 30 years, ask yourself a fundamental question.
What's that?
Are you truly building autonomous, flexible wealth for your future? Or are you just setting up a massive forced payday for your silent partner?
Man.
It is a highly compelling reason to look very closely at the Roth option, where you pay the pain up front, buy out your silent partner today, and retain total unrestricted control of your capital tomorrow.
That is a phenomenal way to frame it, a forced payday. It definitely forces you to rethink the automatic reflex of just blindly taking the tax deduction today without considering the exit strategy.
It's all about the exit strategy.
Well, we started this deep dive staring at what looked like a complex, tangled engine. Hopefully, we've helped you identify the basic systems underneath the chaos. We've shown you the fuel, your contributions, the spark, the employer match, and the air, the compounding time.
It's ready to run.
Your one action item for today is simple, and it takes less than 5 minutes. Just open the hood, log into your HR portal, look at how your match is calculated, check the expense ratios on your funds, and make sure your engine is actually turned on. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the 2026 landscape. We will see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to All Things Investing. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a tip that could boost your financial future. Follow us on TikTok, YouTube, and wherever you get your money advice. Until next time, keep investing in yourself. Financial disclaimer. The information provided on the All Things Investing podcast is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as financial, investment, tax, or legal advice. Always do your own research and consult with a licensed financial advisor or other qualified professional before making any investment decisions. The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, and do not constitute official recommendations. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Past performance is not indicative of future results. By listening to this podcast, you agree that the host and associated parties are not responsible for any financial decisions you make based on the content provided.